Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. Today I have Christin. Christin, it's so wonderful to have you on the show again. I I always say that I trust you guys with my personal money, my company's money, and a lot of clients' money at the same time. So if you put your money where your mouth is, you guys got my monies.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me back on.
One of the questions that we talk to around our clients a lot has to do with industry knowledge. And I am pretty consistently surprised that they're shocked when they want to know why they should have a dental specific CFO or a someone who specializes in the aesthetic or med spa space. For me, I've told Jessica many times, and in fact, you guys do this survey to the clients that ask, at one point you did, what's the most valuable thing we do? It shocks me that that's a question because the most valuable thing you guys do is bring me awareness of what's happening in the industry. And I know that we're different. I know that I'm an agency. I'm not a med spa. I'm not a dentist. But like the fact that you can tie events in the industry to my business is the most valuable thing. I mean, anyone could do my books, and I know you guys don't do the books. We do it with Adam, but I can walk through my P&L with anyone. It's the insights that are amazing, and the industry provides insights. And talk me through how that is actually a thing that people wonder
Yeah.
about. It seems shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very important thing. Now, before we kind of broach the subject of why you need a specific industry specific, CFO or CPA, I would like to clarify what the difference is
Hmm.
between a CPA because we get this question all the time. And I was actually talking to a potential client the other day and he was like, he made such a great point. I was like, you should just do all of my marketing from now on. And I just, whatever you just said, let's do a video clip of that. But he was like, do you ever wonder why all of these big organizations, they've got accountants and they've got bookkeepers and they've got CPAs, but they all have CFOs.
Hmm.
So, what is the difference and why do you need both and why is it important for them to be industry specific to you? So, a CPA and the difference really from what we do as fractional CFOs. But a CPA, they're looking in the rearview mirror. So they're assessing your business, what happened last year. They're looking at all of the different things and assessing your taxable liability. And that's really the core function of their role in their job is to ensure that you're taking advantage of all of the different things that you could be doing. They'll do some amount of projecting. You
Hmm.
really want to have an industry specific CPA for this particular reason in and of itself. They need to have a good idea of what you did last year and what you're going to be doing this year so we can project taxes and potentially if you are growing your business and we're going from $100,000 bottom line to this next year $500,000 bottom line to the next year 700 a million so on and so forth. They need to understand that there's evolution because of your industry. There's opportunity for you to grow, and we have to be a little bit more strategic on the tax side
Hmm.
whenever they're planning and forecasting. Well, they're not really forecasting, but they're giving some estimated tax payment recommendations for you to pay quarterly as a business in order to not be surprised by this huge tax bill
Right.
that lands on your lap next year. So I think that's why it's really important to have this industry specific CPA. Now, why all these organizations, all of the big organizations, they have a CFO, while the CPA is looking back that way, the CFO, their primary function is to look forward.
Hmm.
So we actually make a very nice marriage with the CPA. So if the CFO is looking forward, we are forecasting your revenue, we're budgeting expenses, we're forecasting your profitability. What we do whenever we're working with clients is we partner with the client CPA. We share with them the forecasts that we've mapped out. Hey, we've added an associate dentist. We've doubled the size of our hygiene team. We've added all of these additional providers. We're doubling our revenue and doubling our profits. We're going to have a tax situation. So, knowing these things and having that foresight allows us to be really strategic around tax planning and knowing what we should be doing now, knowing what we could be doing. If there is an industry specific CPA and they know that you are growing your business and you're thinking about bringing in these, either an associate or thinking about bringing on some additional pieces of equipment, they can help you guide when the
Hmm.
right time is to purchase those things so you can reduce your taxable liability. Hey, we've got a tax problem on our hands because you've doubled, the profitability over here. Let's,
Hmm.
be a little bit more strategic about when we purchase these things. And in working with us, we can make sure that it also makes sense from a cash flow standpoint. So the CPA isn't really, they're not diving into where, hey, I noticed your dental supplies, those expenses are really high. They're not going to necessarily commentate on those types of things. But, we're looking at all of those things and we're planning, hey, we have all of these grandiose ideas to add providers, add equipment. Does it make sense from a cash flow standpoint? So we'll work with you to map that out, and then the CPA can adjust the estimated payments that you're making. We can strategize what we're doing on a tax side.
I've never thought of it, but I was smiling as you were talking because now Jessica's always been in our life, Maven
Mhm.
and Jessica knew, but it is true in previous companies we've started with the CPA, and I'd say there a CPA is probably 80% rear looking and 20% forward looking, and the 20% is about once a year when they're talking
Yeah.
about the next time. And yeah, we actually ran into that problem before Maven, I think, was founded. In fact, of Andre and I had a huge growth year. I mean, I think we like tripled in revenue one year meaningfully. And, we got a tax bill that was, it would choke a donkey. It was so huge. And that was when we began to really talk to Jessica. I think we met her around that time, but that's when we really been talking to her about the strategy around, how the company's set up and the expenses and all the stuff. But like, I'm I like having the dental specific CPAs. I think that keeping the books is nice. I think that, how you classify the revenue and the expenses and all that is super important. But if you don't have the forward looking, how am I going to pay for the Atero and the CBCTs, and when do I hire an associate, and what should I invest in marketing or not invest in marketing, and how much do my associates need to make? Like, I find that so much more valuable once that foundation's laid of, the books are being kept good, my tax returns being filed good, and now I want to spend all my time looking forward, because that to me is where the opportunity and growth are.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a great point. And just to kind of touch on something that you said, so another definition, whenever we're talking about all the people that you should have on your financial team, some CPAs will also do the bookkeeping and the
Hmm.
accounting, but not always. So we have a lot of conversations with our potential clients and they're like, I've got a bookkeeper, I've got a CPA, but they're not helping me. They're not giving
Hmm.
me any advice.
Well,
Now,
there the
oh
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, the scope of bookkeepers and traditional CPAs are so limited. I talk to my bookkeeper once a month. I mean, I'm going to use me, and they send me. I joke of the questionable transaction report.
Yeah. hmm That's it.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with these transactions. That's literally all that I talk to my bookkeeper about.
Mhm.
My CPA, I talk to once a year, maybe. Now, I'll tell you, my CPA is also our tax attorney. Um, so but they file the taxes. But and then Jessica ties everything together for us on the conversations, and we meet with her every quarter and have a really nice meeting. But when you think about it in those terms, if you value where you spend your time, my CPA and my bookkeeper fire off a couple of emails asking me for documents and clarification, and my CFO really wants to know the business and how the new hire is working out and when do I have the next new hire and what KPIs are important. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, if you spend your time where you value, that's mine's my CFO.
Um, Back to what you were saying, if you do have your CPA, or if you are working with a firm, they're doing your books, they're doing your taxes. You made a really good point earlier, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but they should be categorizing your P&L in a certain way as well. So that's another benefit to having an industry specific CPA. What drives me crazy is we do all of these complimentary financial assessments for different people that, potentially might want to work with us. We like to give them some insights, just take a look under the hood, share what we see, take a look, give them some advice, and then if they want to work with us, great. If not, like, here's some free advice for you. But what I see all the time is people working with their brothers, wife's uncle, son, son's best friend, or something like that. So, and they're doing the books. They're not familiar with the dental industry or the aesthetic industry or whatever industry you're in, and they're
Hmm.
lumping sales in one category. I've got one category to sales. That's all the revenue that's coming in to your business, into your practice. And I've got about 100 expense categories. I've got one for tying my shoes. I've got five for my auto expenses. I've got five for office supplies. But the most important thing in my business, I've got one category and everything's flowing in there. So if you have different service lines, maybe you have a GP practice and you are doing airway, treatments, or maybe you're doing sleep treatments,
Hmm.
or maybe you have this small fraction of your business that's orthodontics. So, being able to break out those revenue lines where I can see, hey, 10% of my revenue is coming from these sleep treatments, and 60% of my revenue is coming from restorative. That is so insightful. And
Hmm.
then the cost of goods, the supply costs that are associated with that. Do I have a lab category? Do I have a dental supplies category? Do I have, if you are doing some of these extra treatments, I've got a practice that does frenectomy and tongue ties and things like that. They have anesthesia. So let's break all of these out and understand, well, what are all of the revenue lines,
Hmm.
and then what are the associated costs. So that is really helpful, having this, industry specific bookkeeper and a CPA firm, so we can kind of understand what's coming in, but what's going out and what's relative. What are my margins over here?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to deal on in my life. I want to deal when I buy a car. I want to deal when I go shopping for something, a commodity. I
Mhm.
definitely do not want to deal when it comes to keeping the books of my company. I, I, I know that they use their brother, sister's cousin because it's cheap,
Mhm.
but it is way more expensive. If you think that the cost of hiring a good CPA is expensive, wait till you get the bill for failure. Um, it's not going to be good. It's interesting. As you were talking, there's two events that came to mind. The first is when you guys and Amira and Adam took over the books to sort of form that group. You're talking about they had to go back and refile our taxes for a couple of years because they found some errors. And they were well meaning, but they were small. And the other one was there was a time in 2019, pretty early in 2019, Andre and I were in London and we just had a record revenue month. We signed a huge account and all of our offices were growing and doing well. And we had a record revenue month. And I got an email that saying the books were closed for March and we lost a ton of money. And I was like, I can remember being in London on my phone looking at this massive red number loss and thinking, how is that possible? Because we just had this record revenue. And it turned out that we had been classifying all of our revenue as just, sort of the in the same bucket, and that we had a specific type of revenue that was being recorded that had no the Google and other stuff, we don't charge a pass through, but some of that counts as revenue, and but it's 100% expense. So we didn't have the revenue broken out, and but in reality, even though we looked more healthy on the top end, we were losing money at that stage pretty aggressively.
Yeah,
We
that's
brought that
so
back.
important. Especially on the aesthetic side, I see it a lot more over there. I mean, if you're not breaking your revenue categories out and if you're not breaking your supply categories out, it's very easy to lose track of the margins. I'll meet with clients and do this financial assessment with them, and I'm like, well, you are spending 60 cents of every dollar you're making on supply cost, and I can't see what supply it is. But this tells me either one of two things: your prices are inappropriate, they're too low, and your margins just are what they are because, that's you're having to pay this cost of good, or you're purchasing way too much and I can't see where it is. So there's a lot of things that, whenever we start working with clients, we kind of have to break apart all of the bad things that we've been doing, bad data in, bad data out. And I'm giving you bad advice. I don't want to give anybody bad advice, but if we start from the get-go at really putting these things where they should be, you have a lot more insight and overview and oversight into what's happening in your business, and you can make course corrections really quickly. Otherwise, you might be waiting for your sister's husband's mom's dad or whoever to get the books to you 3 months from now, and everything is just bucketed. But you really shouldn't be spending more than 30 minutes analyzing and trying to dig into what's going on in your P&L. So whenever we're working with clients, we try to fix that right off the bat. Let's make it more intuitive. Let's look at it in a way that makes sense. Let's break out your revenue streams and let's look at your margins, and let's not make this thing scary.
Yeah, I would say, so if you're spending more than 30 minutes on
Mm-hmm.
your books, if you don't know what your industry's doing, are
Mm-hmm.
you the only one who's up? Are you the only one who's down?
Yeah.
If you're managing your bookkeeper and your CPA, those are all signs that you need to call Maven.
Yeah, we work with dental practices all across the country, and typically, whenever we start working with a dental client, they retain us for life. 95% of our clients, they keep us around until they either retire or they sell their business, because
Hmm.
we're really working to make all of your financial team work together, and we're all focused on the same goal. So if you want insights into your business, if you want to know what other clients that are just like you or other practices that are just like you are doing, I think that's what a lot of our clients find so helpful and are so appreciative of, that oversight and that insight. There's a lot of associations that'll share benchmarks and they'll give industry reports and summaries, but we have real-time access to dozens and dozens of practices all across the country, all different types. What are they doing? And we actually, I don't know if Jessica shared this with you, but this might be another conversation for another time. But we compile an internal benchmarking, I guess, like workbook, so we can
Mm-hmm.
actually pull in the financials, pull in the key performance indicators. What are your providers producing? Is this above average? What's the average revenue per patient? What's the average revenue per day? Are you below average? Are you above average? Are you right in the middle? Where on this map are you kind of falling? And what about your profitability? What about your revenue? What about your hygiene production? So we're able to look at all these data points and make real-time comparisons. Well, what are other people doing? And where do you have opportunity to maybe squeeze some more juice out of this thing?
We've had the same thing for a while, and we've got maybe two bad pieces of feedback, but and the feedback was they were below average and didn't know how to improve.
Mhm.
But most love it. I mean, almost everyone. loves knowing how that they're not the only one moving up, that they're not that hey, listen, I know you're really excited that the entire industry is moving up and you're moving up at 7%, and that's great. And I think that insight's so powerful, and I can't thank you guys enough for all you do for us and our clients. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was your Bite of Dental Marketing with Kristen's Amazing Bite.